cannot separate change from improvement. So the PLC process is elegantly simple, and it's at the fingertips of everybody listening to this. In fact, it is so important that the most prevailing research on disrupted education proves is even more important during the pandemic than it was before a pandemic. So we really have no excuse now. PLC requires a change in human beings, more profound than articulating or identifying an hour for collaboration or giving people data. It's a change in culture. And in the Learning by Doing book, which I referenced earlier, the authors present us with this challenge. Here's what they write. When a school or district, like the ones who are tuned into this PLC Summit, when you're on your journey to become a PLC, there's a couple of personal commitments that have to be made by the educators in your system if we're going to move from PLC light to PLC right. Number one, they have to agree upon and embrace the concept or the principle that we embrace high levels of learning for all kids as both the reason we exist, but here's the key, the fundamental responsibility of all of those who work within it. So the tipping point between PLC light and PLC right is a tipping point between what I refer to as discontent versus dissatisfaction. If we agreed that every kid learning at or above grade level is our mandate and we're responsible, we wouldn't settle for PLC light. So what has to happen among the human beings to push us to that next level? Discontent has to turn into dissatisfaction. And in many schools, that hasn't happened. So let me give you an explanation. What is discontent? Discontent simply means the recognition that a problem exists. Many schools across this country and across the world have students that they are well aware are underperforming. There's no debate about it, no doubt about it. The kids are underperforming. They don't like it. It disturbs them, but it doesn't disturb them enough to actually go through the pain and inconvenience of change to actually do something about it. What causes a change in practice? It's dissatisfaction. What does dissatisfaction mean? It means that this issue is so egregious, that it's so disturbing, that I cannot accept this reality. What does that look like? It's Patrick Henry saying, give me liberty or give me death. It's a young man standing in front of in a tank in Tiananmen Square. It's Malcolm X saying, by any means necessary. When educators culturally reach a point where we accept that all kid success is our responsibility at or above grade level, and that becomes a burning dissatisfaction, then we'll open up the door to the change that will actually make a difference. So a book I recommend to you by a real philosopher, not Beyonce, is a book called The True Believer by a philosopher named Eric Hoffer. Eric Hoffer is credited with being one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century. He studied social movements. In a book that was a huge academic breakthrough, published in 1951, called The True Believer, Thoughts on the Nature of Mass Movements, Hoffer wrote a passage that I think is worth analyzing even in 2021. Hoffer wrote that discontent by itself does not invariably create a desire for change. Other factors have to be present before discontent turns into dissatisfaction or disaffection. One of those is a sense of power. Hoffer found that those who are awed by their surroundings do not think of change no matter how miserable their condition. When our mode of life is so precarious as to make it patent that we cannot control the circumstances of our existence, we tend to stick to the proven and the familiar. So, the recognition that a problem exists is not enough to guarantee change. what actually produces the efficacy or power to do something about it is dissatisfaction. No efficacy, no dissatisfaction. No dissatisfaction, no change. So, over the past 3 or 4 years, you've heard a lot about the concept of efficacy. PLC requires collective staff efficacy. What is efficacy? The power to produce a desired result or effect. If our desired result or effect is that more kids learn more at a deeper level, then there has to be a commitment among all of us who work in our systems that we are the difference between success and failure. Can parents help? Absolutely. Can kids be more concerned and engaged? Absolutely. But there is no element more essential to growth and development, to revolutionary change, than the efficacy of the faculty. I'll prove it later. So, question